Hey guys, I've seen a lot of questions on the forums about getting set up with campaigns and how to intermingle things and get everything running just correctly, so I thought I'd try to put together somewhat of a quick tutorial on just what order I've found that things work best and how to get it all working. So what I'm going to do, start fresh completely, just go ahead and create a new module. So it starts you out here in the adventurer camp. Now, what I've discovered is that I like putting in at least one or two merchants in the area here, so that especially if you have multiple locations, it gives the players a place to come back, empty out their inventories, purchase potions if they need to. But the first thing I found is best to do is really sit down and plan your adventure out. So take a few minutes ahead of time, decide what you want the story to be, what kinds of quests you're going to do, and what different areas you're going to be putting these quests in. And then the first thing I do is I come in and I start making the NPCs. So now you can just go generic NPC, of any particular race. A lot of this stuff really doesn't matter at this point. You can modify their appearance if you want to, completely randomize it, or just accept what's there. Depending on the NPC, it doesn't necessarily matter. You will have to name them. Picking their voice doesn't really seem to matter at this point either, because they don't really make noises or anything like that when you interact with them. One of the neat things I have found, though, when you are putting monsters and whatnot inside a dungeon, that you don't always have access to all of the creatures that you would like to. For instance, if you're putting together, say, an underground cavernous area and you want to have undead and maybe goblins in there, well, that doesn't give you access to things if you want to put like a gelatinous cube or an ooze. So the way I found around that is you go into the monster section here in the NPCs and find the monster that you want. So let's say we're going to put in some kind of pudding or ooze or something, an ochre jelly, and treat this as you would just like any other NPC. You can modify some of the stats or abilities if you want to. Sometimes I find it fun to give these guys an extra added edge. Give them a name. Sorry about that, my phone. Give them a name, but when naming these NPCs, I would just name them what they are. Because if you give them a specific name like Jim or Joan, you're going to have a whole bunch of ochre jellies that look like Jim, or are named Jim. And you can also use these as boss encounters when you create them. So if I wanted to come in here, let's say I wanted an ogre zombie to be a boss. Yeah, there we go. Give him a couple of crazy abilities here. And call him Grog. Some of the character portraits for the monsters are a little funky, or even sometimes it's just the background, it's blank. Hopefully that's a bug that'll be fixed, but here, make sure to set them to hostile. Alright, so now we're just back in here. Under characters, you'll see each one of those. So I'll put my little guy here, make him a merchant. The way you do that, you have to right click on him and then you can start adding vendor types. So I'm just going to make this guy a potion merchant. And then let's make one more NPC just so we can give out a quest. This guy we'll just call Jim. Now Jim, we're going to right click him. Oh, I haven't actually created the quest yet. So the next part after the NPCs is to go in and create your different quests. So whether or not you want those quests to be a boss encounter, if you want them to go collect a bunch of different items in a dungeon somewhere. The defeat enemy seems to be, at least from what I've seen so far, if you want to like put some mini bosses in. Now with the boss, the collection, and the defeat enemy quest, it puts all of those on your dungeon maps randomly. Well, mostly randomly except for the defeat boss. It does that for you and you don't actually get to pick that. You can't even move the boss around at all, which is a little bit of a drawback because I'd like to be able to put the boss where I want in the dungeon. And these custom quests are where you can really just kind of go set a quest up more that doesn't fit necessarily in one of these categories. So first one I'm going to do here is we're going to put in a defeat the boss quest. And you can select from the different bosses that they have available here, or if you say custom, now you can see I have my NPCs in here that I can pick from. So we're going to say Grog, and right here you can pick from different reward types. Now everything loot-wise is random, so you're not going to be able to set specific items, but you can say, oh, when they complete the quest, I want them to get a weapon, a piece of armor, some kind of trinket like a belt or boots or ring or something, or it can just be nothing. You can choose whether or not to give them any gold. Set that up, and now what I'll do is go into the locations. We'll create a new location. Now the overland areas right now are pretty limited, but I expect those will be opened up quite a bit once the game goes live on the 29th. In this case, I'm just going to create a small dungeon. Now for this is going to be the general difficulty of the pre-generated encounters, which means as it sets up encounters in each room, generally they're going to be set to medium. But you can still alter that once you go into the dungeon. So we're going to keep this small and simple. Pick it in the Lost Mine tile set, just do one floor, just kind of keep this basic. I highly recommend in these areas you go and really customize it. This is what shows up on the load screen, and granted it will only be visible while it loads up that level, but it's still kind of a nice little customization type touch. So we'll just call this the Ogre Mine, home of the nasty ogre. Now here is where you can go and assign your quests. So if you had created a collection quest, you would be able to pick that from here. Same thing with the mini bosses. And since I only created the boss quest, here you go with the defeat the boss. Now you can edit the quest, which brings you right in here to defeat the boss. Got Grog right here, and what our rewards are. So just say accept that. Oh, this was another thing. When the quest is given to you, you want to have that unlock. So that way, if the players try to leave here before getting the quest, they don't see that area on the map. And now we go to the NPC. We're going to do a new quest action. And right now, because I only have that one quest created, it will be that defeat the boss quest. So on speak, give the quest. And now you have your first quest. Now a friend of mine did bring up a point with the collection quests that's a little bit wonky, is that you can have an NPC send somebody out to collect a bunch of things, but then once you've collected them all, the quest just ends, and you're not actually forced to come back. So a little workaround for that is I'll put a collection quest in the same place where there's a boss quest, and then what happens is wherever the boss is, behind that boss somewhere, I'll put an object that they can interact with. And so if I drop an object here, I'll just say wooden stool, I can assign a quest to this object. So now, in addition to the collection quest, what I would do is create a custom quest, and it would sit behind the boss. You'd defeat the boss, then you'd have access to go and talk to this item or interact with this item, and that will give you another quest, which basically brings you back to the NPC here in the encampment to return everything. The only problem with that is you could actually go through a dungeon and not collect all of the objects and just collect this one item. You wouldn't get the quest completion for the collection quest, but you would get the quest completion for this part, the custom quest. Now the reason why I'll do a lot of this too is in this specific order is because once you randomize this, if you decide you want to change some things, it's going to re-randomize it. So if you've gone and spent a lot of time detailing a level, and then you decide you want to add a boss quest or you want to do something else, it's going to force you to unlock it and re-randomize the level, and all those customizations you've done can be gone. So do it this way first. Get all these things, your NPCs, your creature sets. Nice thing about this here too is when you have custom creature sets, they show up in a list. You can pick from those custom creature sets. Just leave that at goblins and say more goblins since we're just going to fight an ogre. Once you visit the level, or try to visit the level, it comes up with this, and this is the point where it actually generates that dungeon. So you want to try and have everything else set up before you generate the dungeon. Then you can come in and start customizing it to your heart's content. Another question I saw in the forums is, how do you tell where the entry and exit points are? As far as the entry point, it will always load you into the entry point when you visit the location. And then the exit point, it's a matter of just scrolling around, looking at the dungeon and finding it. Now right here it looks like, well, this is going to be both the boss room and the exit point. Now I found that when you do choose the default bosses, they appear as a pewter here, just like these encounters over here, and you cannot move the boss anywhere around. However, with a custom NPC, I can move him around, but he won't stay. When you load the level up every time, whether it's in the campaign creator or DM mode or whatever, he's going to end up getting popped right back here again. So it seems like with a boss encounter, they want him to stay right in this big room. Now with each of these, you can edit the encounter. You right click on it. You can change the type of encounter that it is, make it completely empty and fill it with something else if you want to. So you can change the difficulty, whether, even though most of these, or pretty much all of these, are going to be medium, you can still change it to a hard or an easy encounter. I'm going to make this empty, and then here I'll bring in my jelly. So now here you can see, even though he's not part of the set of monsters, because all I chose was goblins, I still have a way to put down other types of encounters if I want to. Now I've found with secret doors, it seems 20 right now is the max spot DC. But with traps, you can set that trap DC all the way up to 50. So hopefully that's something they'll fix, and you can make the spot DC for secret doors even more difficult, because it would be nice in some of these levels where they twist and turn and they're a little bit larger, if you want to try and force the party to go in a certain direction to face off with one mini boss before they face off with the boss. It would be nice to increase that spot DC so that they won't ever even see the secret door. And what I was talking about with the collection quest before, so Grog is here, what I would do is just drop an object, say pile of bones. And had I created another quest, maybe to find a family heirloom or something like that, in addition to whatever else they were collecting, since this is Lost Mines, we might say they haven't running around collecting different gemstones. Here I would put the quest to be a custom quest to collect that family heirloom. When you come into the room, you wouldn't be able to interact with this at first, not necessarily because he's going to aggro you, unless you come in stealth. And then you would be able to return that item back to the NPC back in the cave. So, pretty quick, straightforward, I hope. If there's questions, please just bring them up in the forums. But again, just to kind of basically go back over it, the order that I recommend is going to be plan everything out, create your NPCs, write up your quests. Once you've got all of that set up, then start going in and creating the areas. Once you've got the areas created, link your quests to those areas. Then get the levels generated to the way that you want them. Once all of the levels are generated, then go in and start placing your NPCs, hooking your quests into your NPCs, and basically detailing the levels as much as you want at that point, tweaking the encounters, and now they've even allowed us to put in treasure chests and stuff like that. So if there's any questions, like I said, hit up the forums. Good luck, guys. Hope to see a lot of great modules out there.